You're listening to the Voice of Reason with Mark Reed and Ted Durden, only on LA Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Voice of Reason. My name is Ted Durden, Southern Democrat.
And I'm Mark Reed, a West Coast Republican.
And together we are the Voice of Reason. For those of you tuning in for the very first time, this is a politically motivated podcast where civil discourse is the order of the day, where Mark and I discover that we have more things that unite us than there are that divide us. Now, this week, I'm going to be doing the monologue.
Absolutely. I did mine last week, so it's your shot.
Okay.
You got to bring it home, buddy.
Hey. Well, obviously, this was in honor of Martin Luther King.
Yes.
A civil rights icon. It is appropriate that he is brought up today, and there have been some things that have concerned me of late regarding his legacy. As a quick aside, we saw Ruth Bader Ginsburg be remade, where she became the notorious RGB. Now, of course, that resulted in her profile being raised amongst millennials, young America. I've seen the same efforts occur recently regarding Martin Luther King, where they're trying to make him or recast him more in the image of Malcolm X. Words have been used in the Guardian newspaper, such as lion, force, things of this nature. And I think that the reason they're trying to recast his image is to appeal to millennials, because I think the youth of today have lost knowledge and are not fully aware of the sacrifice that this man made for the betterment of African Americans in this country. Having said that, you have to remember, and I think Spike Lee put it best. He said Malcolm X was our manhood, Martin Luther King was our soul. Martin Luther King achieved through peaceful protestation what Malcolm X could never have achieved through any means necessary. I think it would do a disservice to him to try to recast him in the image of Malcolm X. And I think there's some subterfuge going on. I think it is something that perhaps has been put in place by the Democratic Party to try to galvanize young blacks, because I believe the Democratic Party are beginning to realize that they have taken too long blacks for granted. There's been a slight shift that I think they have become concerned about. Just to recap this really quick, is that when Obama ran for president, he garnered, not surprisingly, 66% of the black vote. When Hillary Clinton ran for office, she garnered only 59%. And as low a rating as Donald Trump has had since his ascension to the presidency, there has been a slight increase from 8% to 10% increase in the support of blacks with Donald Trump. He's even gone as far as to begin targeting blacks with a program called Blacks for Trump. How successful he's going to be is anybody's guess. But I'm a firm believer that the 2020 elections are going to be determined by the black vote. The mistake that the Democrats are making right now, they're not giving us any attention whatsoever, and that will prove to be their downfall. I really and truly do believe Donald Trump is going to walk right back into the White House. Having said that, that concludes my opening. I'm going to toss the ball over to my co-host, Mark Reed.
Well, Ted, you bring up a lot of very interesting points in that, and I would say that President Trump isn't just now targeting. You have to look at the economy and how well the black community is prospering. Not in every area. There's still certain areas where there's a lot of racism there and the economy hasn't caught up, but yet the black employment rate is at its highest or its lowest employment rate in 50 years. So his policies of economy are actually having an effect, and the black community at this point is looking at, well, we had 8 years of Obama and our unemployment rate sky high. They weren't targeting us, even though we had a black president. It didn't work. So he's targeting, not on purpose, he's targeting the economy with his economic zones, and enterprise zones are called, of enhancing the opportunities for individuals to start up their own businesses.
I'm going to say two quick things.
Okay,
Okay.
I got 2 ears, so I'll hear them
Okay.
both.
I would say this. I don't think it's so much Trump's economic policies that has assisted blacks since he has come into office. And I've said this too many times to count.
All right.
It's because of the fact that he's targeting immigration. As I've said
Yes.
too many times to count.
I know where you're going.
Right,
now.
exactly. Because when illegal immigrants come to this country, they have to find some place
Right.
to live where they are least discovered. And
they're
that is going to
they're
be in the
competing.
black community.
Right.
And
They're
so
gonna compete.
it is a natural economic displacement because Hispanics, illegal immigrants, they replace us when it comes to employment. So the thing that he has done to attack immigration, there has been a benefit to the African Americans. And you're right. Trump, it has not just now started targeting blacks. He hasn't. He has done that even before he got into office. Now, I will tell you one thing, though, when you talked about the Obama administration, and it's a mistake that blacks made. And here's the reality of it. You cannot expect, and I'm going to say this goes to any minority. I don't care if it was a Hispanic that got elected to office. You cannot expect a minority to enact legislation that is going to directly benefit his people. Obama made it clear during his inauguration because blacks were all excited, as was I, just because he was the first black man in the White House.
Right.
The fact that, watch what he's going to do for us. In his inauguration, he said, we are all a race. Right there, it flatlined. That sent a clear message. When I get into office, I'm not going to pass legislation that is going to benefit you directly. I'm not going to do that. I've said on this show before. He did more for Hispanics and for gays than he ever did for blacks. Now, when George Bush was in office, he did things that benefited his constituency, the oil barons, those on Wall Street, those that were making money, he did that. If Hillary Clinton got elected, it's very possible that she would have tried to pass some laws to protect women or to elevate them in positions of power. Possibly, if a Hispanic gets elected, he would possibly try to pass legislation to aid Hispanics, but I don't think it would make it through Congress. It was unrealistic for blacks to think that when Obama got into office, he was going to be able to do anything for them, period. That's just a fact.
I've always loved your passion, Ted, and I'm not gonna battle with you on that one.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring it back to your monologue, though. I knew I was gonna open a can of whoop-ass when I talked about that, but it is true. The policies, there's a big difference in policies. But back to the Martin Luther King aspect, I really think that the rewriting of history, rather than the restudying of history and finding out exactly the characteristics of the individuals and what they brought forward.
Right, absolutely.
You know, we've talked about that with the Civil War, with General Lee. Rather than trying to tear these things down, why don't they study the Civil War?
Right.
It was an unbelievable, pinnacle and change of all aspects in American projectile of history. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X, they both have very dynamic personalities, and they brought extreme changes in their own way.
They did.
You can never melt them together and make one person in the middle. It won't happen.
No.
To get the millennials to actually see that the differences would be the more beneficial. Mm-hmm. But I think that the millennials and the Democratic Party can't get over the fact that Martin Luther King was just straight out Republican.
Well,
That's a rough one.
Well, that's just it. See, here's the thing about that.
Right.
See, he has an evangelical daughter. Her name is Alveda King.
Right. I've met her a few times. Beautiful woman.
And she has been very adamant and very strenuous in her position that Martin Luther King was a Republican. Now, it's important to note, as a general rule, whatever your party affiliation is in your family, that's what you stick with. Yep. His daddy was a Republican.
Yep.
That he was. Now, so it makes sense that he was a Republican. He was actually asked once whether or not he was a Democrat or a Republican. His answer was vague and ambiguous. He indicated, I am a man of God, and I don't believe the Republican Party nor the Democratic Party embody the beliefs of our Lord. That's what he said at that time.
Yep. But
it's very more than likely that he was a Republican, just for the sake of the fact that His dad was.
See, now, if the millennials actually studied Martin Luther King, they would know all this information you're talking about.
Well, they would.
But the fact of the matter is all they see is that he had an R behind his name, and they can't handle that. If they look at leadership, when a person is a true leader, they're leading by, how would you say, their faith?
By example.
Whatever faith that it is, by example, what they were raised as a human being, not as a Republican or a Democrat.
Right.
I get asked the same question all the time, and I look at them and say, look, I'm a pragmatic Republican. Okay, I'm a conservative constitutionalist who happens to be a registered Republican because my family was a Republican. So when I turned 18, I registered as a Republican. But I have also read both the Democratic platform, both national and state, and I've read the Republican platform, both national and state. There are things I agree with and disagree with in both platforms.
Right.
You know, period. We're going to do a show on that.
Yes, we are.
We talked about that as well.
A whole lot of
and
fun.
how many people have actually read the platforms? I would say maybe 5%. You said 10. I think 5%. Because if you ask a millennial, what does a Democrat stand for? I don't know.
Well,
You ask them, what does a Republican stand for? Oh, they're going to take everything away from you. They know real fast. And then you ask a Republican, what does a Republican stand for? I don't know. What does a Democrat stand for? Oh, they want to tax the living hell out of you and give it away to somebody else.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
They only know what they've seen and heard on television, or they've read, or their friends have told them, but they really don't know what the platforms are. And that's a complete disservice to the electorate and knowing exactly what they're voting for. Because you can either stand behind one platform or the other. But the true, and I always say this, the true American is the one that can look at both platforms, understand both platforms, and see where the faults and the benefits are of both, because that's what America is all about. We have a phone call. This is unique. Go ahead. You're on the air live. Welcome to the Voice of Reason. Who am I speaking to?
You're speaking to Will from Long Beach.
Hello there, Will from
doing,
Long
Will?
Beach. You got a question,
Hello.
sir?
I want to weigh in on Ted's statement about Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay, you make it quick.
And
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. There is no comparison between Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. They both had their callings, and they did it a different way. But I think for Martin Luther King Jr., if he was living today, I think he would be really concerned about how both parties are acting, and he'd be calling out justice reform and so forth. So you're absolutely correct. There's no comparison between the two. But I have to tell you also, you two guys are the best bipartisan team I've ever seen.
Thank you for that.
I don't know how you do
appreciate
it.
that, Will.
It's easy. It's easy. We both exercise intelligence and civility.
Right.
That's all.
There you go.
I'm not God, and
but
Ted's
I'd like
not
to ask
God.
you both a question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. With the culture that we have in America today, what do you, if you were standing next to Dr. King today, what would you say is our greatest hazard for the future of the country? And then I will yield the floor to Mr. Burden and Mr. Reed.
Well, if I was standing next to Martin Luther King today and he asked me, what is this? What are we lacking? I would say that we have lost sight of our humanity. That's what I would say. Because the United States of America is the greatest country in the world. And we've seen it demonstrated too many times to count. When there is a catastrophe worldwide, we rise to the occasion. But we do ourselves a disservice at home. We see homelessness. We see people starving in the street. We see drug addiction. But we don't see enough. There's not enough that's being done. There isn't. We have those in political office who do nothing more than meet their own needs. And that's all they're concerned about. From the day they get into office, all they do is think about how to get reelected. That's it, and that's all. We've lost sight of our humanity. That's what I will tell him. And we need to reclaim and rediscover that.
What I would say is back then, as if he was sitting with me now, I would say that we have lost our tolerance of compassion and desire to explore what is different, who is different.
And respect it.
And respect it, exactly. Because most people now are looking at other ethnicities, colors, whatever, and they're not tolerant anymore. They judge. They are quick to the comment of putting them down because they're
Right.
different.
Yeah.
And like I said, I sat on stage once with the Rainbow Coalition, and it was about racism. And I said the most dangerous aspect of racism we have now is group mentality, one group against another.
Right,
And it's
probably.
mixed race now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's mixed backgrounds, and it's just one group against another, and it's really dangerous. It's mob mentality that's being developed. But that is the biggest danger and threat. And it's being perpetuated, I believe, honestly, is by the press. It's being perpetuated by our elected officials, and people are no longer diving into real research of what a person is.
No, and
They don't take the time.
no, and it's like you and I said before at one of the town hall meetings that we attended.
Right.
A problem and a solution have no political affiliation whatsoever. It's just a problem looking for a solution. And I don't care what side of the aisle it comes from. If it was a good idea, it's just a good idea.
We're going to be bringing on a special guest today in the election. I've said this a multitude of times, that the most important person that you'll find on the ballot, okay, is your judge. Everybody thinks it's the President of the United States. Everybody says it's your governor, it's your mayor, it's your congressman, it's somebody. Everybody overlooks your judges. The judge has the largest influence over your daily life. They make decisions. You go to the judge. You don't go to the president to fix something that's going on in your community. You're standing in front of a judge. Your judges are the least known individuals on the ballot. They get the least amount of votes, but they have the most influence on your daily life. So on that note, I would like to share some information about a Los Angelino, Troy Slaten, who's running for the Los Angeles County Superior Court Judge Seat number 145. Slaten can help the audience here better understand the need for criminal justice reform as well as voting solutions for all people. The change in voting this year will affect all Angelinos that not enough people really understand what's going on. Slaten was a child actor who started his career by playing Tiny Daly's kid on Cagney and Lacey, one of my favorite shows back then. I love that show.
I remember
actually.
that show, right.
And rounded it with the starring role is on Parker Lewis, Can't Lose. Turned lawyer. Oh, poor guy. Left acting behind when he went to UCLA and then Pepperdine Law School. An attorney for 15 years. He's currently a partner at the firm, but he's ready for his next chapter, serving the Los Angeles County as his judge. On the bench, he'll better position to pursue his passions to prison reform and criminal justice reform. He wants to end the school to prison pipeline and work to see more people rehabilitated than instantly incarcerated. A man after my own heart. Los Angeles County has the highest incarceration rate of any county in the entire country. Slaten wants to try to change that statistic, in part by exploring addiction rehabilitation centers and mental and social health services rather than merely shuffling people directly into the prison turnstile. Most people select which judge to vote for based on whether they're familiar with their name. Even though voting, that's like I said, even voting for your local judge in a direct way to get involved in criminal justice reform, truly be able to create change. When we come back from our ad, we're going to have Troy Slaten with us here to be able to express his viewpoints and his ideas and what he sees that he can do as a county superior court judge.
My erstwhile opponent says I don't accept debate invitations. I accept the League of Women Voters invitation.
The League of Women Voters LA chapter was the one who invited him to the 5 debates with the battered women's organization, with a synagogue, 2 churches, and the American Legion, and he turned down them all flat with the League of Women Voters. Welcome back to the Voice of Reason. Let's welcome Troy to the Voice of Reason. How you doing, Troy?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Right.
Nice to see you, Mr. Durden.
You too, man.
So you're deciding to take on the great disparage of becoming one of our loved judges in the Superior Court.
Well, you say loved, but nobody has any idea who these judges are.
Yes.
I've talked to people and they say, how's the race coming? And I say, I have no idea. There's no polls. There's no tracking polls. Nobody really has any idea. I ask people, how do you vote for judge? And they say, I pick the name I like the best.
Yep.
I think Jews try and pick the Jewish name, and Irish people try and pick that Irish name, and people act very tribal, and probably Latinos try and pick a Latino name. I think it's a terrible way to pick a judge.
Well, there's no real, how would you say, website or system to go to, because you're not allowed to talk about your past judicial participation, right?
Well, you can't talk about an issue or a case or controversy that might come before you, because you don't want to appear to prejudge anything.
Right.
But you can certainly give your opinion, and you can talk about your resume. You could talk about what you've done. For example, I have been a temporary judge of the Los Angeles County Superior Court for the last 3.5 years.
Right.
That means I've donned the black robe, and I've sat in court and acted as a judge, mostly in traffic and small claims matters.
Right.
So I am able to do that, but I serve at the pleasure of the presiding judge, not being elected or appointed by the governor.
So you get to learn the whole process, the court mannerisms, and so forth, and their computer systems.
Yeah, I got to do
They're
that.
wonderful computer systems.
Actually, there's a new system. Actually, it's called BenchView. It's actually a lot better than it
Really? It's
than it
better
used
than
to
before.
be. Yeah. But no, getting to do that, it's really that experience that made me want to run to be a judge, because I got to see in that opportunity, mostly in traffic court, where people are scared to death. They're coming into court. Most of them have never been into court before. Most of them have no idea what the language is. They don't have lawyers, and they're scared to death. And I looked at it as an opportunity to be a PR agent for the court and to disarm everybody, make everybody like no one's going to jail. Everybody wants to get out of there. Nobody wants to be there. But there's a police officer who's going to testify against them. They're scared to death. And I was able to really make it a positive experience for everybody. And I've been in front of a lot of judges over the last 15 years.
Right.
I've seen great judges, and I've seen terrible judges. And the common thread among the terrible judges is that they're just mean. I don't know why, when you've got all the power in that courtroom, why you would yell, why you would dress people down, why you would be disrespectful. It's really baffling to me. And so as a judge, I would want to take all the great qualities that I've seen in judges and simply be nice and give everybody an opportunity to be heard. That doesn't mean every criminal defendant gets to walk out of the courthouse, but it means that everybody is going to have a full chance to be heard.
You want to create an atmosphere where they truly understand what they're going through, what their options are, and not demean them in the process.
There's no reason for that.
No, absolutely not. I've been in front of a few judges and testifying and so forth, and I agree. There's judges that you come across, you smile. They make you happy,
Right?
Even though they fleeced you out of $1,000, but
And,
you know.
and there's some judges that you can't even understand what they're saying. Their voices are mumbled.
Yep.
You can't understand what they're saying. They're reading jury instructions at the end of a trial,
Right.
and the jury's falling asleep.
Yep.
So you need to be dynamic. You need to keep the court attention of everybody in the courtroom. You got to keep things flowing.
Okay. I would say that they probably become seasoned and tainted judges by seeing the same underbelly, kind of like a cop.
Oh, sure.
You know,
Sure,
a cop's
that
on the
happens.
beat all the time. He's there for 10 years dealing with the underbelly of society. They get tainted.
So if you've had enough of it,
So-
then there's plenty of other jobs. You can go do private mediation.
There you
afterwards.
go.
You don't need to sit there on the superior court bench and act in a way that's disrespectful
demeaning way.
or demeaning. Yeah.
So if you find yourself falling into that territory, you're going to scoot out and go take a break,
Absolutely.
get a condo in Hawaii. So let me ask you. You were talking about judicial reform, and both of us have. First of all, everybody is coming up against this new voting system.
Right. It's called
Okay.
it's called VSAP, Voting Solutions for All People. What it basically is a new electronic voting system. So the voting that everyone has been used to in LA County for the last 50 years has changed. It used to be the Inca vote.
Right.
Where you would you'd be handed a ballot from the poll worker, you'd slide it into the machine, and then you'd flip the pages on the sample ballot,
right.
and then you'd ink down onto your choice.
Yeah, little punching pen thing.
Right, and then that was an upgrade from the punch card system.
Right, from the hanging chair.
Exactly.
Yes.
So then it was more of like a Scantron. It was like, but it with a black dot.
I remember.
So the new system, though, you're not going to have the precinct polling booths that you used to have. Now you have, what do you call
They're
it?
like they look like iPads.
They're iPads, but now you have less of them in your area that you have to go to.
That's the
Big
other
time.
huge difference. So
Yeah.
Los Angeles County used to have 10,000 polling places at every
Right.
election. They've reduced that by 90% to 1,000.
What?
Right. Yeah.
So that means
Yeah,
the
it's
place that you
huge
used to go
difference.
to, where you used to go
You're
to
not
the
going
local,
there anymore.
the firehouse or the elementary school or the garage at the end of the cul-de-sac, those are all gone.
There used to be one polling booth. Usually it was you had 2 precincts, maximum 4 precincts in it. And in my congressional district, I think there was 344 precincts. So you're looking at least at 170 different places to go to. And I think in mine, it's cut down to 10.
Yeah.
There's only
it's-
10 places you can go to.
That's insane.
So the way that so that would sound like that's going to disenfranchise a lot of people. It's going to make it much harder to vote.
course.
So what the state has done is allowed early voting. So you can actually go to the polls 10 days prior to election day. So that's 11 days total that you can go and vote. So that will be starting February 22nd of this year and then ending on election day, March 3rd, which is Super Tuesday, which is also going to confuse people because the primary in California, the presidential primary, has been moved up. We used to have it in June.
Yep.
But now California wanted to be more relevant. And so the presidential primary is now on Super Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020.
And let me tell you something. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This whole thing about reducing the number of voting booths, I can appreciate the thought that they put into it about the 10-day early voting. I'm sorry. Human nature is human nature. Why do you think every time you go to a bank at 5 minutes to 6, the line is out the door?
That's right.
Okay? Notoriously, people
Or if you're going to go
wait.
shopping on Thanksgiving Day.
Right.
People wait till the last minute.
You wait until the last minute. Even those people who shop at the last minute, me included. Okay, it's just in our nature. So I'm sorry. This is gonna be a complete
Well, but
fiasco.
you know why they did it, Ted? They want to push everybody towards vote by mail. That's the biggest thing. Because now you're looking at it's a big inconvenience. You go to one spot, there's only 10 of them in an entire congressional district. You don't know where it's at. People are going to finally say, screw it, I'm just going to vote by mail. Now, I'm against vote by mail because that's where you find the fraud.
Well,
if there's any
absolutely.
fraud, there's
Right.
ballot fraud
Yeah.
there. Because you're not going to have a gigantic team of people running around to the poll booths, fraudulently voting. But there is room because the county of Los Angeles uses an unsecured, no policy practice, security policy practices, but they use a print house for all the ballots, and they use a separate mail house. That is not done in the county of Los Angeles.
And
It's not done in the county buildings. These are separate private entities.
I've got more bad news, though.
Yeah, okay.
As if that wasn't enough. The whole new system is, like we said, it's like an iPad.
Right.
And there are many voters, especially those who are senior citizens, older,
Right.
who aren't used to using an iPhone,
Right.
who aren't used to using a smartphone, aren't used to
Right.
touching an iPad
No.
or some sort of touch screen. And they're going to find this very confusing, and it's going to slow things down, and it gets even worse. The system only has the capability of having 4 candidates on a screen. So let's say it's a race where there's like 10, say there's 10 candidates or 5 candidates. You have to, there's buttons where you could press skip or more. So you can skip that race, or you can press the more button to see if there's more candidates on that race. So if there's more than 4, that more button will be there. And so when this was brought up to the county recorder, they did a fix, and here was their fix. It says, it's flashing. The more button flashes, so you know to press the more button. Imagine you're the 5th candidate and you have to be on a second screen. The chance of you getting votes, I think, is significantly decreased.
Now, let me ask you a question. Is that something that's just being implemented in California?
It's something I haven't studied it state by state.
It is implemented in California, and they chose, I believe it's 6 different counties to roll this out in to see how it's going. And LA County is one of them.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, if they implemented this in the South, it would be abysmal.
Yes.
The results would be positively abysmal. They have a difficult time as it is right now with just the voting booths in the South. I mean, and I hate to say this, it is commonplace for voter suppression to occur in the South. Mm-hmm. It was in my home state of North Carolina where there was ballot fixing by this unscrupulous character who was helping a candidate, and it was discovered. I'm sorry. If they try to implement this nationwide, it's going to be a complete and utter failure of catastrophic proportions.
Well, I'm gonna end this segment with this comment as well. This is a voting system that George Soros has backed, and it's from Puerto Rico, and there's all kinds of ways to hack into this and create problems. Massive. It has the potential for such fraud that it would boggle your mind.
And of course, it came from a Democrat.
I didn't say that.
I did, though. It's okay.
I'll let you own it.
I will.
But it's not the Democrats that own it. It's Democrat leadership.
Whatever.
With that, we're going to go to break and pay our bills, and I'm looking forward to getting into the ideas and the concepts of judicial reform, prison reform, drug rehabilitation, mental health, and what Troy wants to bring to the Superior Court. Hi, I want to welcome Rusty Levin and Harry Nabanian, both trial lawyers for workman comp cases. If you're injured on the job, don't hesitate. Contact an attorney. I did when I was wounded or injured on my job, and I thought I would trust my employer, and it didn't work out quite well, so I found Rusty Levin. Handled my case like a professional, worked out way better than any other lawyer that I talked to would have worked out. So Rusty, tell us a little bit about your company of Levin and Nabanian Trial Lawyers.
So at our firm, at Levin Albania Trial Lawyers, we handle all matters of workers' compensation, personal injury, and employment disputes, wrongful termination matters, and things like that. We were able to help Mr. Reed out with his workers' compensation case. Unfortunately, workers' compensation injury can be very stressful, intense situation. And at Levin Albania, we try to get you the most benefit we can of the law, while also easing the stress and anxiety that comes along with that situation, and getting you back on your feet. My partner, Mr. Albanian, he handles the personal injury sides, and I'll let him take it from there.
And just like all injured employees out there, anybody else who gets injured as a result of somebody else's negligence has rights, and the rights that they need to protect immediately. And they should do that by calling Levin and Albanian Trial Lawyers and letting us help ease that tension off of you and get you the result you deserve, while also making sure that you get better in the progress. So we're here for you, folks.
Levin and Nabanian Trial Lawyers is the best company for you to get a hold of when you're injured or have a personal injury. So give them a call at
213-232-4848, 213-232-4848. Thank you.
And let them handle the stress for you while you recover at home. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Hi, my name is Ted Durden, and I want to take a moment to talk to you about trust, and I trust churchandlaw.com. When it comes to workers' compensation and employment law, you can trust churchandlaw.com. If you ever need legal advice you can rely on, it's churchandlaw.com. Black and white, no gray, churchandlaw.com. 818-230-3110, churchandlaw.com. A law firm you can trust and count on.
Welcome back to the Voice of Reason. We're going to dive right into your thoughts, Troy, on I hate calling it the homeless epidemic in the county of Los Angeles.
But there is a homeless epidemic.
But it's not. I always say it's titled. It is a mental health, drug rehabilitation, issue that's going on in the county of Los Angeles that was created by the Latterman-Pentris-Short Act back in the 80s when Ronald Reagan, actually it's before that, it was in the 70s, when Ronald Reagan was the governor of the state of California. And then in the late 80s, he pulled the federal funding away from the short-term and long-term mental health because of the abuse of judges sending people to these institutions and they couldn't get out.
The ACLU also had a hand.
Right,
in
they
it
had a big
because-
hand in it,
Right.
and they had a hand in the last judgments in the county of Los Angeles and in Orange County as well. That if the counties didn't provide beds, they couldn't arrest them and put them in jail.
I mean, the intention was good there for the
Absolutely.
ACLU. They want to protect people's individual liberties. They want to protect that from government intrusion, but it had the unintended consequence of leaving our homeless brothers and sisters out on the streets.
Oh.
What would you
Right.
What would you like seen done? I'd like to hear it from you. You've seen mine. You went to my website.
I did.
You looked at my proposals and the proposal of the 30-day triage center, short-term and long-term mental health care facilities that are co-op with the feds, the state, and the counties. And what's your opinions? What's your thoughts? Let me hear them.
So I started more than 15 years ago when I was clerking for the DA's office in both the Beverly Hills branch, which is no longer there. We've talked about
Right.
that's an
Yep.
empty courthouse sitting there in Beverly Hills. But they used to have a DA's office there as well as in Van Nuys. And when I was clerking for the DA's office, it was a great education. It was also heartbreaking because I could look into the gallery of the courtroom and see who was addicted to methamphetamine. You could look at a person's
see it.
face and you could see that their face was drawn
Skin-
in on
skin
itself.
tone.
Right, pale.
There was a certain look, meth mouth,
Yep.
and they're losing their bone structure, the collagen in their face, and they kind of sink in. It kind of sinks in on itself.
Right.
It's awful, and so many of the people that were being prosecuted for felonies were people that were really addicted to drugs, and a lot of them were people who had even unusable amounts of drugs on them, and they were being prosecuted for felonies. At that time, cocaine possession of any amount was a felony.
Right.
And if you had a speck of cocaine, the position of the LA County District Attorney's Office at the time was, if we can see it, we can charge it. Even though it wouldn't be a usable amount for a person, even though it couldn't get somebody, quote unquote, high from it.
If they had a dollar bill that was rolled up, they unrolled it and tested it to see if there was coke on it because they'd roll them up.
That
and
would
use
be a
as-
felony.
That'd be a felony
Yeah,
right there.
and that to me was wrong. I was seeing people having felonies put on them for stuff that my fraternity's brothers did when I was at UCLA. And it seemed like it was disproportionately affecting people that didn't look like me, people that looked more like you, Ted. And there was a racial disparity in
Right,
it,
yeah.
and that may have been systemic with the police. And there's so many issues with that, but I didn't feel that it was right to be putting people into custody, putting people in jail, giving them the scarlet letter of a conviction that they'd have to carry for the rest of their lives because of a drug addiction.
Okay, what would you like to do different? We've discussed this. You know my opinions
Yes.
about judicial reform and prison reform. What would you like to see changed in the judicial process?
Sure.
And how you go about convicting somebody or getting them help, or what would you like?
So I've been, as a defense attorney, I've been in courts in San Bernardino, in Orange County, in LA County, in Ventura County. And our surrounding counties, our sister counties, do it better than we do as far as having what are called collaborative courts. Collaborative courts are homeless court, drug court, veterans diversion court, and those women's reentry court. And those are courts where the person isn't just swept off to jail because they
right.
may have committed a quality of life crime.
Right.
And instead, they are given the options for treatment. And we talked about this before,
Yeah.
putting the keys to the jailhouse in the person's hand and give the person the tools and say, these social services, this treatment is available to you. This drug treatment is available to you.
Right.
And if you want to take advantage of it, if you want to do that, then jail will permanently go up on a shelf and you can earn your way to a dismissal. You can earn your way, and I think that that's a great opportunity. And it's the money that we take in incarcerating people who are drug addicted and are mentally ill or both makes up the vast majority of the inmates of the LA County jail system.
Yes, 2/3 of them are either mentally handicapped, some or drug addiction,
Or both. Which is called dual diagnosis.
Yeah, well, drug addiction is a mental disorder,
Sure.
but they're self-medicating to go through it.
Right.
Now, we've discussed a little bit about this. Again, I'm well versed in drug rehabilitation, and these 30-day programs and 60-day and 90-day programs are inadequate. It takes a mind, the brain itself, the physical brain itself, after detox, 1 year to start functioning right. When you have a major addiction, it's going to take that year to clean up completely through mental rehab and nutritional rehab as well. But then it's going to take another year of reprogramming that person, giving them vocational training, opportunities or so forth to get them back into a right set of good habits.
Dr. Drew Pinsky has talked about
Absolutely.
that. Who's
Yes.
an addiction expert,
Yes.
and he was actually one of my early endorsers. He's endorsed my candidacy for Los Angeles County Superior Court
that's a
judge.
fantastic
When he found
endorsement.
out that I was running for the Superior Court in seat 145, he said, "Troy, I endorse you."
I'll send him this episode.
All right.
Now, with mental health, what do you see doing, and how can the county refurbish their approach on mental health?
So what they should not be doing is what they're doing right now.
It's incarcerating.
Which is incarcerating. And if you've ever had the unfortunate occurrence of seeing the mental health ward at the LA County Jail where people are in straitjackets,
I've seen it.
handcuffed to chairs,
Yeah.
it is absolutely atrocious.
Yes.
It's no place. It makes One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest look like Club Med.
Yeah, they're not getting the help. They actually get worse going there.
Absolutely.
You can take an individual that has a minor mental health problem. They get arrested. They put them there. They can't be in general population. They throw them into this ward, and they just get
They just sit
they
there
get really
and
bad. They
sit
just,
and
they
fester.
they digress unbelievably bad. And so what would you like to see?
So here's what I'd like to see happen.
Right.
So when there are people that are coming before the court system that have a mental health problem, I'd like to see our courts put more resources into the mental health court. Right now in the entire of Los Angeles County, in all the courts, in the hundreds of thousands of criminal cases that we have every year in Los Angeles County, there are 2 departments. There are 2 courtrooms that deal with those that are mentally ill. And so the funds, this really comes down to, again, elections and allocation of resources.
Right.
And we talk about what's important. And people don't know who the judges are. They also don't know often who the Board of Supervisors are.
I was going to say
And
the county board of supervisors has complete control of the budget.
That's right. So the 5 members of the LA County Board of Supervisors control the budget for all of LA County. And if LA County was its own state, it would be the 7th largest state in the United States.
Yep.
And so that billions and billions of dollars in budget resources need a little rejiggering. They need a reallocation. So that way we're not spending all the money that we are incarcerating people and housing people and feeding people inside the jails, making them worse and making them not be prepared by vocational rehabilitation, teaching them, giving them job skills, the whole idea about giving a person a fish or teaching them to fish.
Right.
And if the resources were just reallocated within the court system and within the penal system, then I think we could see a lot better outcomes that are evidence-based.
Why are you running for judge? Why don't you run for county supervisor?
One thing at a time. No, but
I'm pulling your leg on that one.
I want to run for judge.
You know
and
that. I know you do. I'm just pulling your leg.
And so I hope
you have a good grasp on the reallocation and where budgeting needs to go. Because I'm a strong believer. You want to find the problems, you look where the budget's going, and
That's
you'll
right.
find the problems. Because in the county of Los Angeles, the mental health is completely controlled by the county. It's not a city issue. The county is the one who has to allocate that out. So when you look at that budget and the allocation of the money for mental health, serious mental health, you look at the 5 county supervisors and say, why aren't you working with the different cities and corporates in the county of Los Angeles to fix this problem?
I saw recently a heat map that was of all of LA County that showed where the homeless populations are and where are the most deaths.
Right.
And the allocation of resources should be more evidence-based. They should be going towards those districts, those supervisorial districts that are where the problems are. And so there needs to be a reallocation of our resources. It's not that we need more money or more taxes.
No.
We just need to allocate it more smartly.
Well, let me ask you a quick question.
We're going to go to a quick break,
Okay.
and we're going to get right into that. Troy brought up a very, very alarming statistic, which I am aware of, and that is in the county of Los Angeles, 3 homeless people die every single day. So you need to really look at this next election cycle and hold these elected officials accountable for this. We'll be right back after this ad.
My erstwhile opponent says I don't accept debate invitations. I accept the League of Women Voters invitation.
The League of Women Voters LA chapter was the one who invited him to the 5 debates with the Battered Women's Organization, with a synagogue, 2 churches, and the American Legion. And he turned down them all flat with the League of Women Voters. Welcome back to the Voice of Reason. We're going to go right to Ted's question because we have about 12 minutes left of the show.
Well, we had an off-the-air discussion, and Troy pointed out the fact that the budget from 2018 to 19 was $36.1 billion.
The 2019 to 2020 fiscal year budget is $36.1 billion.
And that's crazy. So as a judge, what could you do in that position to persuade the county supervisors regarding the way that they allocate funds?
Well, probably as a first-year judge, probably not much.
Okay.
To be honest, because I'm going to go wherever the presiding judge assigns me, and that's a thing that a lot of people don't understand, is that the judges, they're not just for criminal cases, but this is small claims, traffic, family law, divorces. If somebody is seeking a restraining order against somebody, if there's an elder abuse case, if there's child delinquency or dependency. All those things that people consume in the court services, those all have to do with the judges. And so what would I do? I would certainly encourage the prosecutors to not overcharge cases, which is something that they do in order to exact pleas from people. By overcharging a case, by saying, look, you're facing 20 years in state prison. Do you want to plead to something that just gives you 2 years in state prison, or do you want to go to trial and risk facing up to 20? And that's why the LA County District Attorney's Office has a conviction rate in the high 90%, because they get to pick which cases go to trial, and they get to decide how they're going to charge people, and people freak out. And also, there's a problem with the cash bail system. As a judge, I can exercise my discretion into whether or not to require that somebody post cash bail, or whether somebody is released on their own recognizance. And the cash bail system disproportionately hurts poor people, because they will stay in custody until their case is resolved, and people that have money can pay bail bondsmen to get them out of jail while they're fighting their case. And if you're sitting there in county jail every single day while your case is being resolved, you have a very strong incentive to just plead guilty to something, to get it over with, to get out and be done. Whereas somebody who's out of custody and is walking around on the streets and is with their family and kissing their children every day, they have the more of an incentive to fight the charges and wear down the prosecutor. So what can I do as a judge? I can put the pressure of the judicial office on the Board of Supervisors. I could have a larger platform to speak about the reforms that are necessary, and I can lobby the judges. on how they allocate their resources, because it's the court itself that allocates its own resources. So I can move my brothers and sisters on the LA County bench to allocate their resources towards more homeless court, more veterans court, more diversion courts, more women's reentry courts. And that's something that I can do from day one.
Yeah, that's a great, the diversity of the different courts and addressing the different issues that become before the courts. But wasn't it 2 or 3 years ago they closed down how many of the superior courts in the county of Los Angeles?
Well, it was during the global financial meltdown following 2008 and 2009. It had a ripple effect into state budgets across the country. And so the court budget was restrained. The courts had to significantly cut back, and they cut back on a lot of the local courthouses, which made it difficult for people to access justice. They made it so in the county of LA, if you wanted to file a restraining order at one point, you could go to one of 2 courthouses in all of LA County, which spans, and people don't realize. People ask when I tell them,
it's huge.
When I tell them I'm running for judge, they say, which district? No. That was back in the days when there was municipal courthouses and municipal judges. But ever since the early 90s, judges run county-wide. That's from Santa Clarita to Long Beach, from Westlake Village to Pomona, and all the cities in between, and Palmdale off to the northeast. Palmdale, Lancaster.
So how many before the global meltdown of the economy? How many courthouses were there?
I think there was about 40, 45, and now there's about 30.
About 30.
So it was a huge decrease.
30%.
And it was the small courthouses like Malibu, like West LA,
San Fernando.
San Fernando's actually still there. But there was many Huntington Park. There was many courthouses that were just shut down, and they're sitting there. They're still owned by the county. They're still kept clean. They're still pristine, but there's just nothing being done.
So would you like to see those courthouses reopened?
Absolutely. I think the easier it is for people to access justice, that will mean less lines for people. It'll be easier and less burdensome to get the relief that they're seeking from the court
Would
system.
you like to add more courthouses? If you got the 10 back, would you like to add more?
Well,
Do you
I
think that 40
some of the courthouses now are significantly in need of repair. They are disasters waiting to happen. Like the main central courthouse in Los Angeles, the Stanley Moss Courthouse. The presiding judge, Kevin Brazil, has said that if there was a major seismic event, it would be a catastrophe for the people that are there. The courthouses are riddled with asbestos, and they were just built at a time when we weren't thinking about the seismic activity like we do now. So there are billions and billions of dollars in needed repairs in the courthouses.
Would it be better just to abandon those and build new ones?
Possibly, like they did in Long Beach. They abandoned the old Long Beach courthouse and built a beautiful courthouse, the Duke Magian courthouse. And so maybe that is what we'll have to do. But then it's again about allocation of resources. Do we have more mental health court and more drug court and more women's reentry courts, or do we build new fancy courthouses with the latest technology? So those are things that we've got to decide. And hopefully your listeners will elect the reform-minded judges like myself, Troy Slaten, and there are a whole slate of judges. What the district attorney, the current district attorney, Jackie Lacey, who's running for re-election against some reformers like Rachel Rossi and George Gascon, she has really doubled down on sentencing and on charging. When the rest of the country is moving towards reform, she's still seeking the death penalty for many, many cases, where the rest of the country is moving in a different direction. And I'd like to see some change there. And what they did was, there is a district attorney, which a lot of people don't know. That means that's your local prosecutor. They put a district attorney in every single race. Every single one, there's a district attorney running. And then there's some other people that are more reform-minded that are running. The district attorney that I'm running against has been found by the Court of Appeal to have engaged in egregious prosecutorial misconduct. And yet, because of the lack of education among the voters, many people won't know. And so hopefully they'll vote for Troy Slaten instead.
The interesting thing is you use the word reform. And I think the general public out there feels that there's a complete lack of it being held accountable for your actions. You know, with Prop 47, 57, you know, people can walk into supermarkets, stores, and just grab $900 worth of stuff, get us, you know, up to $950. They're going in with calculators now, and it's a slap on the hand.
Right.
Drugs have become a complete slap on the hand.
Right.
You're not prosecuted for anything anymore. Everything has become civil. So when you use the word reform, it kind of makes people think, well, are you the type of person that doesn't want people to be held accountable for their actions?
No, here's the thing. I think judges are in the best position to see when the people coming before them, whether this is a hardened criminal, whether this is a repeat offender, or this is somebody who just messed up and needs a second chance. That is a great opportunity for a kind judge to really be able to make that decision and know what is the appropriate disposition for that individual. And it needs to be decided on a case-by-case basis.
And you have to advocate for the services via the county, the city, and so forth, to be able to give those people the help that they need. Because, yes, you're the last line of defense. Either that person is going to go seek help or they're going to go to jail.
That's right. It's the judge that decides whether that person goes to state prison or gets probation.
Right.
Whether that person is incarcerated or given a chance to say, look, if you take advantage of this mental health and drug treatment, you can walk out of here without a conviction on your record.
Exactly.
That's what a good judge can do.
I would like to have you have the opportunity to give that 30-second elevator pitch of why people should vote for you. Tell them where your website is, how to get a hold of you, do you need contributions, and so forth.
Well, of course, because this is a county-wide race.
It's a big county.
The only way to get the message out to the entire county is through advertising. We do Facebook ads, we're putting signs, we're doing slate mailers, and all of that takes money. So if people like what I'm saying and want to contribute towards reform, criminal justice reform in Los Angeles, they can go to troyslatenforjudge.com. That's TroySlatenFOR judge.com, and contribute on my website. They could leave their name there and give me some of their ideas and join our mailing list. And look, you've really got a choice in this race, in my race, which is seat 145, which doesn't correspond to any geographic location. It could be anywhere in the county. I could end up doing traffic arraignments in Pomona. It's you never know.
You go where you're needed.
Go where it's needed. And the choice, though, in my race, in seat 145, is whether you want somebody like me who is reform-minded, or you want a career prosecutor who has spent their entire career putting people in jail for the maximum sentence and counting that as a win, and engaging in egregious prosecutorial misconduct. That means cheating and breaking the rules in order to get convictions. He had cases that were overturned on appeal because they cheated during a trial. That's misconduct. That person shouldn't be a district attorney, let alone be an LA County judge. So vote for me, Troy Slaten, come February 22nd through March 3rd, or if you got your absentee ballot, those start getting mailed on February 3rd. And come check out my website. Please make a donation. And thank you so much for the opportunity to come here and talk with you guys. I hope to come back.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
If you like what you've heard, please take a look at Troy Slaten's website. Troy Slaten. I get it right. I did it on purpose so everybody get it twice.
Oh, all right.
Go to Troy's website. Like I said at the beginning, the most influential person is your judges on the ballot. So really do your research. Ted, bring it on home.
And as we go into this year, you have to remember every vote counts. Make sure it makes a difference. You have to show up at the ballot box. You have to. And as I say and close every week, ignorance prevails when rational minds sit back and do nothing. See you next week.
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Mark Reed and Ted Durden, only on LA Talk Radio.